The online payments market is expected to reach $11.53 trillion across the world in 2024, with a high growth rate of over 5%. Companies that are facilitating the consumers in making this transaction, for example, through credit cards, which Visa and MasterCard are doing, or facilitating businesses in person make these transactions, for example, what Square is doing through its terminals, have made billions of dollars through the course of the last decade, and their market caps reflect that, with Visa having extremely high profit margins and a market cap value of over $300 billion. But your credit card is only one part of the transaction where you enter your information to make a purchase. What about the companies that are actually processing that purchase and helping e-commerce brands like Amazon, Shopify, and others make that transaction and actually make money? This is a huge opportunity and where Stripe steps in. At its peak, Stripe was valued at $95 billion and recently in 2024 has been valued at $65 billion. Of course, it is a private company, so this valuation will not materialize until it goes public, but the sheer scale and volume of the industry makes it a better than average bet. Before we dive deeper into the specifics, please smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and smash the comment button, and also smash your laptop. At its base, Stripe is just a payments processing platform, with its inspiration coming from its founders, Patrick and John Collison. The brothers, both born in Ireland in Limerick, were always interested in programming and entrepreneurship, and were pretty smart as well, attending MIT and Harvard, ultimately wanting to focus more on entrepreneurship and founding their first company, Octomatic. This is somewhat similar to Stripe, but also completely different, and was essentially an online auction management system whereby auction houses could sign up and conduct auctions online, process payments from one party to another. Since this was the time where companies were shifting to online payments, they sold the startup for $5 million in 2008, providing the initial funding they needed to pursue their bigger ambition, which is how can we solve these existing inefficiencies with online payment systems. If you were a user on the internet in 2008, you know exactly what they're talking about. To put it simply, it was very suspicious. And not just the front-end aspect of the consumer, they also noticed that for businesses, these processes were unnecessarily complex, especially for small businesses. If you're a small business or startup, you might not have time to get everything with your payments processor right, and you would want to focus more on the product or the service that you're selling in the first place, so encountering a complex process might deter your business. So they wanted to make a developer-friendly, user-friendly payments processing platform that companies could use securely and safely and make money. The solution was targeted at developers. They wanted to take the pain point away from developers of developing payment systems from scratch or dealing with complex APIs and code, so they made a simple system that people could just integrate onto their websites and start selling goods and services. Their developer-focused nature drew attention from Silicon Valley because Silicon Valley loves itself and loves tech companies that actually want to help developers, and they got initial interest from Peter Thiel, an initial investor in Facebook, and also Elon Musk, who back then was actually trying to help the world with technology and not worried about running Twitter to the ground, and so they were accepted into the Y Combinator batch of 2010, ultimately securing funding from Sequoia Capital and launching in 2011. After the launch, their tech savviness and preference for making developers' lives easier made them a fan favorite in Silicon Valley amongst startups and businesses, getting a lot of key early clients, boosting their growth at a stage where most startups struggle to acquire customers. In 2013, they went global, launching in Canada and ultimately launching in Latin America, Europe, and Asia as well. A key part of their business and philosophy has been continuously iterating and figuring out what developers in certain parts of the world want. For example, in China, they have solutions catered towards third-party payment providers like WeChat and Alipay. Since they realized that those two players dominate the market, they were catering towards developers so much that they had large features on their roadmap specifically so that developers would not stop using them. Stripe Radar is a perfect example of this. Their Radar product is a fraud prevention tool that helps businesses detect fraudulent transactions before they actually happen, and was a big ask from developers since they didn't want to spend extra money on cybersecurity or did not have the technical know-how or knowledge to figure out when fraudulent payments were happening. Usually companies that are very tech-focused and forward-looking ignore traditional finance, but that is not the case with Stripe. Very early on, they recognized that the financial industry is strongly influenced by banks and traditional institutions as well. So what they did is, instead of trying to ignore them, they went and started partnerships with them, listening to their concerns about regulation and ultimately making sure sure that they're a regulation-first startup. Their belief in traditional finance and traditional finance methods not going anywhere is cemented by the fact that they now also have Stripe Terminal that enables businesses to accept in-person payments, and Stripe Issuing as well that enables businesses to create and manage not only virtual credit cards but also physical credit cards. This opened the corporate market as well for them, where businesses spend hundreds of millions of dollars on corporate employees to manage their expenses. Perhaps the biggest nod that they had to traditional finance was launching Stripe Treasury in 2020. This is a partnership with Goldman Sachs and American Bank, where they now offer banking as a service. This double-edged strategy has paid off for them, and why businesses like Amazon, Shopify, Google, and other multi-billion-dollar companies prefer Stripe over other competitors. Why a lot of people, and especially tech-focused people, believe that Stripe is going to keep on acquiring more business partners is because of how technically sound the product is. They were one of the first big startups to use Postgre SQL as their primary database and also heavily use APIs, ultimately allowing them to process millions of transactions with low latency and high uptime while remaining extremely scalable. They're also known to have extensive logging and bug reporting within the product itself that allows them to identify problems and quickly come up with solutions. And once again, their developer community is second to none. Comprehensive documentation on everything from setting up the product using specific APIs and customer support agents available to help you with niche solutions to your business. All in all, making it a very easy product to use and integrate from a developer perspective and also a user perspective. To take this even further and acquire more customers, Stripe is now focusing on becoming secure, targeting the huge federal market and also international expansion. It's adding a lot of security features, including 3D Secure for increased authentication during the entire payments process. It's also spending millions of dollars every year conducting regular security audits and assessments in different countries, for example, Brazil, China, India, other developing markets, to make sure that it's in the good eyes of the regulators there and is able to push its product out as a competitive advantage. Okay, that's enough complimenting Stripe and saying how amazing they are. I sound like a Stripe salesman. I don't have any stock in Stripe and I don't particularly stay up at night thinking how good they are. There's definitely some challenges with their future expansion. Firstly, the privacy laws and financial regulations in countries keep on changing, and they have to spend millions of dollars throughout the course of the years to ensure that they are financially compliant. Specifically in Europe, which is a $1 trillion market, anti-money laundering laws and data protection laws like GDPR are going to be a pain from a regulatory perspective when it comes to keeping sure that you're compliant and keeping sure you can operate. Similarly, obtaining new licenses in dozens of new jurisdictions is very time consuming and very complex, requires tons of meetings and convincing the government and financial authorities that their solution is going to actually add to the financial ecosystem and not take away jobs from other fintech companies that are already operating in the country. And without the confirmation that they're going to be allowed to operate even 4 or 5 years in the future, because laws are always changing, laws are never going to stay the same, and this presents a pain point for Stripe. Specifically when countries already have PayPal and other payment providers that already have an existing relationship with banks, regulators, and have been around for longer. And I mentioned PayPal specifically because they have Braintree, which is essentially their version of a Stripe competitor. It provides very developer-friendly payment solutions and has a modern API structure much like Stripe. And on the other hand, Stripe sees not only online payments but also in-person payments as not going anywhere anytime in the future, which is why they launched Stripe Terminal. But they face Block or Square, who's already an existing competitor in that space and has a chokehold on the market when it comes to up-and-coming businesses, mom-and-pop shops, and quote-unquote startups that prefer their streamlined solutions over Stripe. This is going to be a hard market to infiltrate, specifically because there is an upfront cost to acquiring terminals, and the market is extremely saturated already with not just Square but tons of banks in every different country providing terminals, with some even giving merchants pretty good deals in terms of the percentage that they take that ensures that they keep on using the bank's terminal over any other existing competitor. If Stripe can somehow solve this problem of an already saturated market in the point of sale terminal space while also protecting its reputation as a developer-first and developer-friendly platform, specifically with the documentation that it has, and constantly adding on new products that developers want, for example, products in security and authentication, maybe new APIs providing some sort of AI insight into payments infrastructure, which is something that they are exploring. Not AI for improving someone's payment infrastructure, but AI that looks at merchants' data for selling and purchasing and provides them capital or debt that is optimized to their particular problem. Think of it like Stripe being a creditor, except the terms that it gives you is optimized towards your particular business, and it is probably going to be a better deal for you than a high interest rate or a payment term that is not going to have entirely your best interests or your best business at heart. To gain an upper hand in this AI arms race and development in general, Stripe has tons of open source projects, with Stripe SDKs providing official libraries for various programming languages, a JavaScript library that businesses use specifically to handle security. So while Visa, MasterCard, and other traditional companies go more private, Stripe is going the other way by focusing more on developers and the open source community. If this pays off, it remains to be seen, but the market opportunity is huge and someone has to take it. With them having the most data, the most fleshed out community, the most amount of high profile partnerships, and one of the best development teams, this is how I count to 4 now. And their focus on both in-person and online transactions, they seem to be in the perfect spot to maybe become the next trillion-dollar company. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one. And yes, like, comment, subscribe, just do it. Don't question it. It's free.